Happy holidays, sports fans of the Rio Grande Valley, and thanks for joining us on another episode of the South Texas Border Sports Podcast. I am the host, Ray Silva. Thanks for joining us on this episode. Folks, the holiday season is upon us. This is our last episode of this year, and we will be coming back mid January with new episodes and new guests. But today, joining us on our podcast, he is RGV sports writer Bryan Ramos of the Monitor and My RGV News. Bryan, thanks for taking time out of the busy schedule. I know you have a lot of sports covering in your plates. How's everything going?
Ray, I'm doing good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the invite to come and chop it up and talk some sports here in the Rio Grande Valley. It's a lot of sports going on, but we got a little bit of a break with the Christmas holidays coming up over the weekend, and then it's right back to it next week.
Absolutely, and you talk about chopping it up, having a lot of sports in this holiday aspect of it right now on a little bit of a recess, but recently UTRGV, it's been the talk of the town recently with them naming Travis Bush as the head coach. You were there at the press or present at the press conference as he was being named officially. What are just some of your quick thoughts on the hiring of Coach Bush and the things that could come with it for UTRGV now?
Man, so yeah, definitely, it's definitely exciting times here in the Rio Grande Valley. There's definitely a buzz that's now become, I mean, just a reality, right? I mean, in a couple of years, we'll be playing, or UTRGV will be playing Division I football here in the Rio Grande Valley, and the Rio Grande Valley will have a team to root for. So that'll be exciting. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then, of course, as you mentioned, Coach Travis Bush named the first head coach in program history. So uh, his plate is full with building this program from the ground up. I'm sure that's going to be an entertaining process to watch over the next couple years as they prepare to start competing officially in 2025. But Coach Bush, I mean, and this is something that Coach Bailey and I mean President Guy Bailey and Chase Conk, athletic director and vice president Chase Conk, talked about when talking about Coach Bush. And I mean, he checks all the boxes, man. He's a guy that has ties to the Rio Grande Valley and has that coaching experience at the Division I football level. He spent a year in the NFL, uh, turned around two high school programs in short times there. So this guy, Coach Travis Bush, I believe he really does check all those boxes, and as he has the experience, he's been there. He's coached under some greats like Larry Coker at UTSA and Gary Patterson at TCU, and I'm really looking forward to seeing this whole process as far as the steps that'll go from his being hired earlier this month to now in 2025, in August of 2025, when they kick off that first season. They'll sign some recruits and of course build the coaching staff and all that good stuff in between that time. So that's really what I'm looking forward to most. And I think Coach Travis Bush is a good selection. And like I said, he checks a bunch of those boxes with experience, ties to the Rio Grande Valley, and everything you want to see in a head coach that's tasked with building a program from the ground up. So I think it was a good hire, definitely by UTRGV, and now I know he's hit the ground running, so I'm ready to see what these next 2 years hold.
I know you being an alum from UTRGV, UTPA. Did you ever envision this now as an alum of this happening? You've been to multiple UTRGV athletic events, UTPA athletic events. What's kind of the sensation you get now as an alum? Speaking from that point of view.
Yeah, no, it's really insane. Yeah, I mean, if you were to ask, because I did attend UTRGV back when it was UTPA, Texas Pan American, and before the merger with UT Brownsville. And so, you know what I mean? I guess once that merger happened, I don't know if I really knew it at the time. You know what I mean? What would come of that, and the growth of the university, and adding UTB's whole student population and that whole campus community into the here that what was Texas Pan American and creating that UTRGV, what is now UTRGV with Edinburgh and Brownsville campuses, and has grown into. It's really amazing to see. I live just a couple minutes from the university. I've seen the growth and I've seen the progress that all the athletic programs have made. I mean, the basketball program to the good things that they did. We're doing a couple years ago with Coach Lou Hill, who of course rest in peace to Coach Hill, and that turnaround that he had here with his the men's basketball program, and now Coach Figure has them playing very well this year, and the women's basketball team doing very well. UTRGV volleyball winning that regular season conference championship this year, and of course the baseball team has been just doing wonders under Coach Matlock since he took over that program. And now we got Division I football here in Edinburgh, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley. It's exciting, man. I honestly, I can't believe it. I mean, when all these moves happened, and I guess the process kind of started happening, and there were those football feasibility studies, and whether that would happen, and what would go into that whole process, and now here we are, man. Time has flown by, and I mean, in the background, I know UTRGV has been, you know what I mean, steady at work, and it happened. It was under Chris King, who is the former athletic director, and now Chase Conk, who is who's taking that torch and run with it. And now we have real Division I football in the Rio Grande Valley, so it's amazing to see, and I'm excited. I wish I was still a student, man, and I could go to those games as a student, be sitting with a student body and cheering and tailgating and hanging out and partying before games, but now I'm really looking forward to covering this team and seeing what UTRGV football has and the opportunities that it will bring for not just the Rio Grande Valley, but the athletes in all of South Texas. Because, yeah, I mean, this is the southernmost football Division I football team that will be in Texas. I know we got Texas A&M Kingsville, a D2 school, just a couple hours north. But hey, man, now Division I football is down here at the tip of Texas. So I'm really excited for it. It's just a phenomenal move, and you got to give credit to the UTRGV athletics department, of course, the local leaders who have helped aid them in that process in bringing Division I football here to the Rio Grande Valley and making it a reality. And in 2025, we're going to be at games, so I'm really looking forward to it.
For me, one of the things that stands out about the entire process of the feasibility, the feasibility study part of it was one of the things, like, okay, like a lot of people stood themselves like, okay, are we doing this? Are we not doing this? What are we looking at program wise? Like, for example, having to add a lot more a lot more students. For example, the cheered spirit squads, the marching band that's going to be coming into it, and of course you've got the other 65 other athletes that are going to be part of this football program. And you say that because you're looking at least 3 to 400 to potentially up to 500 new students if you include the swimming and diving programs, when it's all said and done. To me, it's just going to be part of a massive growth uh, that we're just privileged enough to see it right here in front of our eyes and in our backyard per se. But I will ask you this, as an alum, did did you ever like think of this day coming? That it would be like an out of reach thing. I mean, just as an alum.
As an alum, no, I mean, not really. I mean, when you think of what was UTPA and now UTRGV, I mean, uh, football was the only thing missing. I feel like, you know what I mean, and now it's here, and it's unbelievable in my opinion, and I'm just it's been so cool to watch the growth of UTRGV and becoming that Division 1 school, that Division 1 football competitor who wants to compete, hopes to compete in the at the FBS division and jump right into the fire instead of competing at the FCS for a couple of years. So I'm really excited to see this UTRGV football team, man. It's something really cool, man. People have always joked about UTPA, the Bronx being undefeated in football, and now UTRGV being undefeated in football, and now it's a reality, man. I mean, we're in just a couple years, or in 2024, they're going to be next year. They're going to be signing their first recruiting class. So they'll have a full coaching staff and all that stuff with the coordinators who will help run this offense and defense and special teams, and then of course the position coaches. And then once they fill that roster, man, from talking to Coach Bush, as we both have so far this year, since he's been named, he's definitely hadn't shied away from uh, expressing that there will be opportunities for players from the Rio Grande Valley to, to walk on with that football team and earn spots and potentially earn, you know what I mean, earn scholarships to play there. He said he wants to keep the best here in the Rio Grande Valley, and as a former high school football player here in the Rio Grande Valley, it's just so cool. And I mean, we don't even really know how just what its impact is going to be. Like, yeah, we're getting ready for it to come, for UTRGV football to be here. They'll start competing in 2025 and conduct a practice season in 2024. But now, I mean, as I cover high school football here in the Rio Grande Valley and talk to some players and coaches, man, they're more fired up than ever, because I mean, we got Division 1 football here in the Rio Grande Valley. The coaches are going to have a great opportunity to go and learn and to see what Division 1 football is like. They don't have to go to coaching camps up at UTSA and Texas State and Baylor and TCU, and nothing against that, but the coaches have to make a long trip from the Rio Grande Valley to go see that. Players here in the Rio Grande Valley have to go to, into those Texas A&M games, to Texas Longhorn games, to see Division 1 football played at a high level. And now it's like, hey, man, we have this opportunity here in our backyard, and it's real. It's as legit as it gets. We got Coach Bush, a guy who has been there, and you turned around programs, has coached great offenses, has produced great players, and now people here in the Rio Grande Valley will have that opportunity. And Coach Bush said it, man. This UTRGV team is going to be. When I spoke to him, he said it's going to be built off Texas high school football players, and that's a really cool opportunity. And what better place to do it here than here in the Rio Grande Valley, that just continues to grow and continues to be on the up and up. So I'm excited for the university and the entire Rio Grande Valley as a whole.
For me, that thankfully, I mean, I'm a person that never went to UTPA or UTRGV, but I did go to my fair share of games. Um, I never thought this would have ever been possible. I mean, let alone a feasibility study, because I came out of high school in 2005, and to just see the enormous growth that this has taken, that it's added to the effects to all of the other Olympic sports like women's basketball, men's basketball, baseball, men's and women's soccer, tennis, golf. I mean, I think they're all seeing like the benefit of football being added here in the Rio Grande Valley. But moving on to our next topic, the women's basketball team. I mean, you're out there covering the games and whatnot. What has been the number one thing that has really surprised you about this women's basketball team this year?
Man, so yeah, this UTRGV women's basketball, they're 6-5 this season. And when you say 6-5, it's like, okay, yeah, that the 6-5, that's about 500 record. But UTRGV's losses have come against Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Kansas, and then most recently Bowling Green, who is in the top 50 as far as the RPI goes. So this UTRGV team, man, they're not shying away from teams, and they're going at them, and it's really cool to see Coach Lane Lord again in another year, as far as bringing in his talent and his type of players, as far as those first couple years where you kind of inherit You know what I mean? Some players in the roster and everything. So it's been really cool to see. We've had some real impact players come in and really have just really be contributors right away, and that's been really cool to see. And one of the players that has stood out to me is freshman forward Charlotte O'Keefe. She's a 6'3" forward. She plays the five. She's plays a center spot for this UTRGV team, and she's a freshman, man. But she's skilled. She's tall. She has the size. She's good on defense and offensively. She has really good touch on offense, and uh, what she's been able to do early on, and just the way she's been able to impact games on both ends of the floor has been really cool to see. And then, of course, the addition of Ayanna Dorsey, Yaya Dorsey, who is UTRG's leading scorer, averaging over 16 points a game this year. She's a transfer from Tarleton, and she's a dog out there, man. She's really good. She's not afraid of contacts. She can shoot the three, and she can drive in the lane, man, and and put up shots and take contact and everything. And she's been a really good addition to this UTRGV team that has really impressed me so far. I know one of the things that Coach Lord has talked about is how the defense has been much better than the offense this year, and that defense has been playing really well. So it's really cool to see Coach Lane Lord and this women's basketball team do some really good things this year. What have been your thoughts, Ray, on this women's basketball team as with another year under Coach Lord?
For me, my favorite thing about this team is just how they play on defense. I mean, they just don't let you breathe. I mean, if I have an opposing team playing against them, I'm like, oh no, I want to, I just want to shy away from them from playing, having to play offense against them because defensively, I mean, I feel like this season's team has been one of the better sound teams defensively, and that's just because no disrespect to the other coaches that have been there at UTRGV, but that's one of the more impressive teams on defense that I've seen. To hold down some of those offenses. I mean, I'm just like in shock. That generally we're not seeing 70 to 80 points per game, but we're just seeing them like in the low 50s, low 60s. And that's been, I guess, the number one thing that has really caught my attention this year. Uh, I mean, the record says what you are, but if you analyze some of the numbers defensively, I mean, it's been pretty stout. You know, and sometimes because you have so much good defense, your offense can kind of suffer just a little bit, like it's been this year. Like that one game against Bowling Green at the South Padre Island Convention Center was a has been one of those games that really just you're within like a two possessions away from being neck to neck with the best of the Mid American Conference, and that's just like wow, like this team is gonna be giving a lot of teams in the WAC a lot of problems, and that's the season where I'm just looking forward to with the women's basketball team.
Yeah, the and one what you touched on it, Rand, just to kind of keep it there. That defense has been so impressive, and uh, I mean, now that you think about it, none of UTRGB's starting five were starters last year. Four of them are new to the program, and Haley Jones, I believe, came off the bench for the majority of last season. She's now been inserted into that starting lineup, and UTRGB has been playing with the starting lineup with Charlotte O'Keefe at the five, Deborah Ogiemi at the four, Haley Jones at the three, Mel Kalahi at the two, and Ayana Yaya Dorsey at the one. So four of those five players weren't even playing for UTRGV last year. Haley Jones was definitely had a really key role on that team last year for UTRGV, being one of the first players off the bench to come in and definitely play big minutes all throughout the year. But that's been really impressive for any team. I mean, you know what I mean, to bring in almost a whole new starting unit, and the people that have gone to the bench, they've accepted the role, and they've played and stepped up in their positions when their numbers have been called. But the chemistry that this team has shown in a short time has been really impressive. You know what I mean? To have that amount of new blood into this team and onto this roster, and to be playing the way that they are so far this year has been really cool. And then, as we both touched about, and Coach Lord has talked about after games this year, is that defense, man. And the defense, I think it starts as far as the at the guard position, the front court, the backcourt players, with Haley Jones, man. She's a dog, and she's just a problem out there. She's always going after balls, just going after 50-50 balls and creating problems and getting in passing lanes and pestering the ball handlers. And it's her play, I guess, really has just been impressive to me, because she kind of sets the tone. A few years ago, Ray, you'll remember, it was Megan Johnson doing that for Coach Lane Lord, and now Haley Jones has stepped into that role where, yeah, she'll hit some big shots for you when given the opportunity. She's had some big games this year offensively, but what really gets her going is playing defense and making plays and coming up with steals, getting some offensive rebounds, some defensive rebounds, and coming up with some blocks. So Haley Jones has just been really cool, and I think that the whole team has kind of, you know what I mean, taking that identity of Haley Jones just being a dog out there, and then Charlotte O'Keefe, as we mentioned, comes in there, and when you have her presence down there, you know what I mean, bothering shots, that's definitely has an effect on shooters. And then Deborah Ogayemi and Zariah Songo and Buju Soysal have all give UTRGV some really good size and post presence, which is something that I don't think they've had really in recent years. I know they've had some good players, a few undersized players who were tasked with playing the five, but now UTRGV has true fives back there to hold down the paint. And man, I think we're really seeing the effect and the impact that those front court players are having on the game.
Absolutely, and yes, you are so correct about Megan Johnson, the Australian forward who played some under Larry Tidwell, and then became a key player for Lane Lord. But you know, just sticking. I guess my last point to this, you know, with this team. I mean, you know, now we're just really gonna see what this non-conference did to this team in order to really see the full effect in conference play, because now your record doesn't count. Now you get to use another formula to demonstrate, like, hey, because of your non-conference, now you get to play the rest of your conference to see how each of those teams are pretty much gonna cannibalize each other, uh, and try to put yourselves in the top 8 or 6, and preferably a top 4 where you're hopefully hosting a game, and you know, just having to play later on in the WAC conference tournament.
Yeah, well, I know the UTRGV women's team. They just wrapped up the South Padre Island Classic, and now they'll have a little bit of break, and then they're back in action December 29th against New Mexico State on a Thursday, and then Seattle U on that Saturday. So Ray, you know how good New Mexico State has been through the years, and they've always been a thorn in UTRGV's side when it comes to especially the men's and women's basketball, and I mean even baseball as well. So yeah, UTRGV gets to test themselves right away with a solid New Mexico State program, and then Seattle U's had struggled a bit this year. So the UTRGV will have a good chance to show what they've built over these first few months. And I know they've been together since June in preparation for this, and now here it is. Whack time has arrived. Waction is here, and I'm excited to see what they look like, man. UT Arlington now in the mix, Utah Tech in the WAC. So this conference will be interesting to see what it looks like at the midway point through conference play, and again at the end, because like you said, this UTRGV team has shown that they can play with some good teams. They're battle tested, and I don't think they'll shy away from anybody from any of these teams. So it'll be interesting to see how UTRGV can compete. And of course, we know that the how the WAC has changed the WAC tournament qualifiers. So I'm excited to see if UTRGV can be one of those teams when it's all said and done. I think they have all the pieces to be there at the end, and it'll just be interesting to see. Of course, you need a little injury luck on your side and a few lucky bounces here and there as conference play moves on. But I think UTRGV has all the pieces needed to put together a good run and have a good showing in WAC play and again in the conference tournament when it's all said and done.
Absolutely, and one of my favorite things during this time of year is how everything takes of a little break to spend time with families and loved ones. But for you, what are some of your favorite holiday traditions that you like to do during the holiday break when you're not covering sports?
Oh man! So usually during the break around this time, and it actually came a little early this year, but usually the Texas high school football state championships are right around Christmas time, and that's always a good watch on TV just to and see all the best teams in Texas meet up at Jerry World there at AT&T Stadium and play against each other, and then man, just watching the Cowboys play. Then we got as always Christmas Eve. I don't know how you do it, but tamales are play a big role in my Christmas celebration here in my family. So I'm really looking forward to that Christmas Eve, which is actually yeah just a day away. So I'm really excited for that. And then of course opening up those gifts and one of the things that growing up that we always used to have is one of my uncles or somebody used to dress as Santa Claus and come surprise all the kids dressed up as Santa Claus. And when you're young, you have no idea who's Santa Claus and who's not. So everybody just not knowing that Santa Claus is here when it's really one of our uncles, one of our tios, just dressed in a Santa Claus costume. So and now that's moved on to the younger generation of kids here. In my family, so it's been really cool to see, and it's just Christmas time, and you can't beat it. Um, you know what I mean? There's eh, uh and this year's Christmas just so happens to fall on Saturday and Sunday. So those are my favorite days, man. And NFL, I love it. Uh, Give me all the football I can handle on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day this year. Of course, Christmas Day is the day that the NBA likes to put some big matchups together, and so I'm just attached to the chair, attached to the couch, watching some sports as a fan because usually when I'm watching sports, it's in a working capacity as a sports reporter, as a sports writer, writing about the games and you know what I mean, analyzing stuff and keeping track of things, and not really being able to take a seat back and relax and watch these games as a fan. But now that this year's Christmas specifically falls on a Saturday and Sunday, I'm excited to just sit back and just watch some NFL. Hopefully, the Cowboys can pick up a win. We play the Philadelphia Eagles this week, so that's always some added fuel to the fire.
Yeah, for me, as growing up as a kid, we would all gather at my grandpa's house, and we would all, exchange our gifts and whatnot. But one of my favorite traditions, uh, I had a family member who would go out and get lottery scratch offs for the entire family, and each of us would get our fair share. And one time, my grandfather, he would have like the strangest luck with all these scratch offs. There was this one year where he ended up winning about $200, and then the day after, for us and my family, we decided to go south of the border back when it was like doable, unlike now, for unspecified reasons. One time we decided to make a stop at we decided to pump gas. We got ourselves a scratch off, and Lord and behold, we were only going with $25, 20 for gas, 5 for scratch offs, and we end up hitting $300 that day.
Wow.
So yeah, talk about having a good Merry Christmas the day after.
Yeah. Heck
Uh,
yeah.
and I guess for me, like now being a grown up, and so some of those traditions have been lost, but of course, the tamales are always a tradition here at the household. Um, and for me, I guess the NBA Christmas thing, the NBA Christmas matchups are my favorite thing to do, especially if you're a Dallas Mavericks fan like I am. Is twice in 2 years that we get to see them at Christmas. Yes, Utah Jazz, you were good back then, but you're not as good now. So I guess the Mavericks do have a little Christmas Day revenge on whoever's on the schedule this year. That's probably about the only Dallas thing I'll root for aside from the Stars. Sorry, Cowboy fans. Uh, Gardner Minshew and the power of the mustache might do some damage to you guys. But anyhow, yeah, that is some of my favorite Christmas traditions here.
Yeah, it's fun times, man. And then this December has been really fun. I mean, UTRGV announcing the head coach, and of course, in November is when the football program was officially approved by the Board of Regents and all that stuff. So yeah, man, this year's holidays have been really exciting. It's been fun. In addition to the men's and women's UTRGV basketball that you and I have been covering, Ray, now we got UTRGV football in the mix, so I'm really looking forward to it, and it's yeah, exciting times here in the Rio Grande Valley, and of course the holidays are always a fun one.
And you know, I was brought up by the co-host of the Down in the Valley that this is the second year of RGVFC's independence from the Houston Dynamo. So, yeah, the holiday season here in the Rio Grande Valley has been quite quite a good one for us in the last 2 3 years now. Now that the Toros are independent, not having to rely on Houston for anything. UTRGV announcing the plans for its football program and all the announcements that they've named so far. I mean, overall, it's a great time here in the Rio Grande Valley, especially in the winter season now.
Yeah, yeah, we got a little bit of a cold weather here, but hey, I mean, 95% of our year is spent above 80 and 90 degrees. So, what's a couple of days of some cold weather? At least uh, fingers crossed for everybody down here that electricity stays on the up and up, and nobody's going through some really tough times like we did a couple of years ago. But yeah, Ray, it's been fun, man. Thank you for having me on to chop it up about the holidays and about the basketball and how they're looking this year. I'm really excited, and I really appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Many thanks to Bryan Ramos. And folks, if you want to catch this episode, we're available now on Alexa through Amazon, iHeartRadio, Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts, and of course on Spotify. And this has been another episode of the South Texas Border Sports Podcast. Hello, sports fans. Thanks for listening to another episode of the South Texas Border Sports Podcast. This is your host, Ray Silva. Be tuned next week for another great episode as we drop podcasts every Monday here on anchor.fm/STBS. Don't forget, our podcast can also be found via Google Podcast, Apple iTunes, and Spotify. Thanks for listening.